to hear his testimony and to see his joy and energy and the courage he has in the midst of all the stuff that he's dealt with in his life. All that being said, one of the interesting things that came out was that Nick Vujicic was recently somewhere and discovered that he was not able to use his debit card or his check card or his banking card or his credit cards because his bank kicked him out. They froze him out, and he had nothing. And he didn't understand what was going on, and come to find out that he had some positions that the bank didn't like and support, and so they said that they would no longer allow him to be a customer. Now, also keep in mind, right, this is a pro-life, this is a guy missing all of his limbs, right? His organization is called Life Without Limbs. This is a pro-life advocate speaking purpose into every single human being on this planet. And somehow his bank said, yeah, we disagree with your position. We don't think you're a good client for us. Like, this is crazy on lots of levels. But in the midst of him getting kicked out of his bank, one of the other things he discovered was that his bank actually was, and many banks do this, many organizations, they actually will do philanthropical social responsibility giving is kind of what they call it. And they will take some of their profits and they will give it to different organizations. And his bank actually was one of the biggest organizations they gave to was abortion. So they were a major funder for abortion of the profits that the bank was making. And so he says this whole thing is just ridiculous. Also worth noting, the reason he was canceled, he believes, is because of him having a low ESG score. And the ESG score, there are things related to what is known as the Great Reset. And the Great Reset, there's the World Economic Forum, which is very pro-socialism, very pro-communism. And they say we should eliminate all wealth in the world. Everybody should have the same. And anytime the government's going to make everybody the same, it's only going to make them the same in misery, not the same in wealth or capacity. We're not all going to be blessed and rich and enjoying life. We're all going to be miserable together. That's what the government does when they redistribute wealth. They redistribute misery and poverty. Nonetheless, he believes it was because he had a low ESG score, because in the ESG score is the environmental, the social, and the government's considerations. And so they look at your life, and just like in communist countries, just like what China does, they will rank you based on how you are living your life. And if you are doing things that they fundamentally disagree with, and they will take points away from you. If you do things that supports their goals and initiatives as a government, they add points to your score. And so, for example, knowing that we are in a culture that is very concerned about the environment and global warming, if you drive a smart car, you get extra points because they view that as an electric car, you are saving the environment. But if you were to drive a truck, if you were to drive something that is a gas guzzler, so to speak.
So in other words, if you're a Texan, you got a problem.
I mean, anybody that drives a truck, right? So almost anybody in the South, on some level, we have family. If you don't drive a truck, your family does. Anyway, the point is, they would take points away. And so that affects your ESG score, and a lot of big corporations are now using ESG scores and what's going on. Here's kind of the end of the story, though. So Nick Vujicic decided that he is going to open his own bank, and the bank is called Pro-Life Bank. And they're going to take 50% of all the profits from their bank, and they're going to give it to Judeo-Christian line non-profits. And so as where some banks are now helping fund the abortion industry, he says our bank, we're going to help fund nonprofits with people who are biblically aligned and doing the will of God. So this is a really good countercultural move, where so often we see what happens in culture and we get frustrated. Sometimes we get discouraged. We're disappointed. And yet in this situation, there are people saying, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going a different direction. And so I'm going to look up. I'm going to see where Pro-Life Bank is. I'm going to see what I can do about maybe opening an account, maybe getting a card with them, something, because this is certainly the kind of bank that I would want to do business with, the kind of organization I would want to support.
But, this is something you can only do in a free market country. If you don't like what's going on, you can start an alternative, see if the people want to respond to it. In a socialist country, which is where they're trying to take us, you couldn't do this. Nick could not offer that alternative. So in a free market country, you get choices you don't get elsewhere. And this is a great, if you will, commentary on what you're able to do with the kind of freedoms we've had for a long time. So I'm glad to see Nick doing that. I hope it goes really well. I hope people join in and support it and help that bank prosper.
Well, so important, these Good News Fridays. I love you guys bringing this good news, and it's such an important thing for people to remember. We won't have those big victories in 2022 and potentially 2024 if you grow weary in well-doing, if you stop acting, if you check out, if you get so frustrated with the just complete insanity coming out of Washington, D.C. right now that you buy into the lie that the system doesn't work anymore. system works. We got to work the system, and we got to stay involved. And so I think if we do that, if we continue to be active, it is going to be a really big banner year in 2022, which means even more positive legislation coming in 2023 when those sessions start. Quick break, guys. We got more good news coming right here on Wall Builders Live. Hey, friends, if you've been listening to Wall Builders Live for very long at all, you know how much we respect our veterans and how appreciative we are of the sacrifice they make to make our freedoms possible. One of the ways that we love to honor those veterans is to tell their stories here on Wall Builders Live. Once in a while, we get an opportunity to interview veterans that have served on those front lines, that have made incredible sacrifices, have amazing stories that we want to share with the American people. One of the very special things we get to do is interview World War II veterans. You've heard those interviews here on Wall Builders Live, from folks that were in the Band of Brothers to folks like Edgar Harrell that survived the Indianapolis, to so many other great stories you've heard on Wall Builders Live. You have friends and family that also serve. If you have World War II veterans in your family that you would like to have their story shared here on Wall Builders Live, please email us at radio@wallbuilders.com. radio@wallbuilders.com. Give us a brief summary of the story, and we'll set up an interview. Thanks so much for sharing here on Wall Builders Live. Welcome back to Wall Builders Live. Thanks for staying with us today. It's Good News Friday. We're diving back into that
where the